Alright guys, we're back again and I'm going to be doing a little reaction video here for Truth or Myth, Australians reacting to stereotypes. This is from Dating Beyond Borders YouTube channel, okay? So I haven't seen this yet, but hopefully it's going to be a good one. Anyway, let's just get into it.
I bought the barbecue inside when I first moved to Canada. I barbecued inside because it was too cold to barbecue outside, and I set the smoke detector off, so I just took the batteries out and kept barbecuing.
I should probably say there first, so she was talking about barbecuing, I think, inside. Very bad idea, okay? Especially if you're using coal, right? Gas barbecue's probably fine, but I think there were recently some carbon monoxide poisonings where people actually died in, I think it was Tasmania, where they had been using a barbecue with coal in it and they had brought it indoors. Do not do that.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
There's a couple that drink water, but we kick them out of the country pretty.
I guess I should probably do these where I say it before we get their reactions. But yeah, Australians are drunkards. There is a bit of a binge drinking culture in Australia, and I definitely felt that strong when I was a young kid at high school. There are definitely a lot of people who take it too far. It is very common. But the ironic thing is that I have met quite a lot of Russians, quite a lot of Estonians, Americans, you know, people from other countries too, Brazilians, and they tend to drink quite a lot too. So I think Australians tend to think of themselves as being a relatively booze-centric country and culture where we drink a lot, and we do, but I think we need to look outside of our own borders sometimes, because there are definitely some other countries out there that put us to shame.
Anyone below 25, I'd say, yeah.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Well, from 18 to 25, and other kids.
Play a bit of rugby and then celebrate with the lads, but...
Crack a tinny, yeah.
Yeah, couple...
Did you hear what she said there? Crack a tinny. So a tinny is like a tin can of booze, right? Just a can of booze, but the slang term for them in Australia is a tinny.
Frothies, not anymore.
Or frothy as well, right? Because beer froths, so we call them frothies. Blow some froth off some frothies? Frothies?
Blame that on the English.
Yeah, they left us in Australia and we had nothing to do. So they went,
Except fight the animals.
When you're travelling to other places outside of Australia, and you can always pinpoint the Australian because they're the ones throwing up.
You have to be pretty drunk.
She was talking about being able to pinpoint the Aussies overseas because they're the ones throwing up. I think that tends to be a pretty strong stereotype when it comes to Kontiki tours and Europe. At least when I was going through university, a lot of my friends went to Europe for 6 months, a year, and the stereotype was that you would go on these Kontiki trips. You know, they tended to be a lot of booze, a lot of sex, and a lot of just debauchery in general. So that I'm sure that did happen to some degree. Whether or not that's every single Australian, I find dubious, but yeah, it is pretty common. Although I think too the English have a pretty bad reputation in parts of Europe as well, particularly English men like Australian men, but because they tend to be able to get to Europe a lot more easily than the average Australian, they tend to get into trouble in places like Amsterdam.
If you're gonna have the courage to fight like a dingo. Get me out.
yeah.
I'm finding that girl really hard to understand. She doesn't open her mouth very much when she's talking. There's another Australian stereotype for you. Alright, so what's this one? Aussies live a chill surfer lifestyle, are super laid back, and walk practically barefoot. I would say some of us, especially along the surf coast, at least where I live. You know, obviously there are a lot more surfers here than in rural parts of Australia, where there are probably none. There are definitely your sort of hippie surfer types who are pretty chilled. I mean, in my hometown here, there are a lot of the older generation driving around in combi vans with Malibu surfboards on top. They'll be, you know, wearing old t-shirts, have long beards, you know, be smoking a fag, drinking a tinny down at the beach, that sort of stuff. It is a bit of a stereotype, so I would say not all Aussies, definitely not the majority of them, but along the coastlines, especially I would imagine around Perth and around the east coast of Australia, you're going to find a lot of these people at beaches. The barefoot thing is definitely a stereotype that's common in the warmer parts of Australia. I don't know if they run around barefoot in Tassie, but for instance, when my wife arrived in Victoria, I think probably Townsville as well, but when she was in Victoria and we got together, one of the things she noted was the number of people just walking around with bare feet, with bare feet, especially in supermarkets. So not only were they doing it outside, but they would go into stores like Woolies and Coles and be walking around in their bare feet. So yeah, that was something she noted. I always thought that was normal. Apparently not.
If you're not near the beach, that's a little bit different, but we do walk barefoot. Or if you can't find your thongs, then yeah.
I'd go to the supermarket barefoot, and someone told me that was just very odd.
And if you're not wearing shoes in Sydney, you're probably from Brisbane.
I can't surf for shit.
I've surfed.
I know not to stand with my back against a wave.
There you go. Yeah.
Your boat's super laid back, as I can see.
Except when we're angry.
Yeah. Then you got to watch out.
Takes a lot.
All right, Aussies have the sexiest accent ever, as perpetuated by Hollywood. Man, I think accents tends to be like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, in the beholder of the eye. Sauron is in the eye of the beholder. So, you know, I don't really find Australian accents sexy, probably because I have one and I'm so used to Australian speaking, so it just tends to be the norm. If I walk outside, everyone's got an Aussie accent. I think we get a little bit romanticized. It gets held up a little bit in Hollywood. I don't think because they, you know, like putting on Aussie accents or anything like that, they tend to do a bad job of that in films. Robert Downey Jr., I saw your old film where you were doing it. But I remember, for instance, when I was watching the TV series Lost, there was an actress there, the blonde one, who is an Australian, and her accent stood out like a sore thumb when she was surrounded by all these Americans. And I think she was also just made out to be the sexy character with the sexy foreign accent. But yeah, I think the stereotype is more that we see others as thinking the Australian accent is sexy. Let's see what these guys say.
There's a difference though to like a Chris Hemsworth that has, you know, that nice voice, and then, you know, oh, how you going, mate?
That's a really good point. So there are multiple Aussie accents. There are many different kinds. You know, you've got your ochre and your bogan, your general broad, regional accents versus your city accents, everything like that. I would say that the general accents are probably going to be the ones that are stereotypically liked by people, you know, maybe the broader as well, but people like Hugh Jackman, you know, Russell Crowe, although he's kind of New Zealand / Australian. And, you know, Chris Hemsworth, those guys with those accents tend to get put on a pedestal in Hollywood. Paul Hogan, when he was doing Crocodile Dundee, was putting on a bit of a broad accent, and people seem to love that. But there are definitely, you know, your more nasal ones like Kath and Kim. That's not a very sexy accent, you know? Those nasally Australian accents, they're not very hot to trot. So, yeah, I reckon the broader maybe general accents... Maybe.
You're seeing American actors try to do Australian accents, and then people think that's the sexy version. It's like, that's not.
What's a sexy Australian accent?
Mate, I don't know what you're talking about at all. Just I'm laid back and cool. Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. does the best. I just want to shout out to Robert Downey.
No, he does not. One of my friends did a video recently where I got to see Robert Downey Jr.'s accent. It would have been in the 90s. It was when he was much younger. It was a horrible, horrible example of an Australian accent.
Jr. when he's obviously...
I also love Robert Downey Jr. So, sorry, mate. You're an amazing actor, but the Aussie accent, not so much.
Obviously going to be watching this.
I have quite a lot of luck here in Canada with the boys. I'd say it's probably to do with my accent.
Like I had a guy that came over from Sydney with me, and he was an Australian, and he was just like picking up girls left, right and centre. And I was like, at home, no one would pay you any attention, but here, because he had that accent.
Man, 100%. It's all about whether or not you're different, you know, unique from somewhere else. If I go to America, people are going to see that I stick out. I've got a different accent. I'm from, you know, a foreign country. I'd get more attention than I would if I were in Melbourne. So I think it tends to be that sort of thing. But if you had someone from like Carolina in America with that very, unique southern accent from America just walking around Melbourne, that would as well be, I think, seen as attractive because, oof, that's different, that's exotic, whereas in Carolina itself, they'd probably be like, it's everywhere.
Like, what part of England are you from?
I've received that as well. I was working in a restaurant in Melbourne when I was finishing my doctorate, and I had that a few times where people would come in, other Australians, and ask me, which part of Britain are you from? Go figure.
Yeah, the Australian part.
They tiptoe around it and they'll go, oh, you a Kiwi, South Africa, UK.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. Australian accents, are they sexy? You be the judge.
G'day.
All right, stereotype. Aussies are all convicts. Man, I think this is an old one. And I should give you guys a little bit of a history lesson. So obviously Australia was colonised in the late 1700s, and the beginning of colonisation was mostly convicts. I think 170,000 convicts from different parts of Great Britain and the other colonies were brought over to Australia. And so for the first few hundred years until more recently, the majority of Australians had convict ancestry, convict blood in them. So their ancestors were effectively these prisoners who were forced to come out here, work the land. They were seen as lower class filth, trash, originally by their contemporaries in the 1700s, 1800s, and even early 1900s. So my grandparents would never admit to or want to talk about whether or not they had convict ancestry. My parents' generation, though, and my generation now, it's come the complete sort of flip where people are now proud to have convict ancestry, convict blood. So a bit of an insult back in the day would have been to call people convicts. So yeah, Aussies are all convicts. Definitely not anymore, because I think Australia is the country with the highest rate of immigration in the world. So the convict blood is getting diluted.
These stereotypes are really real.
I'm not.
I am, apparently.
I'm not descended from one.
I should mention, there are lots and lots of European descendant Australians who aren't from convict blood. So, as well as the convicts coming over to Australia, there were heaps and heaps of other European settlers, whether or not they were from Great Britain, they could have been from Italy, Germany, all over different parts of Europe that happened throughout the centuries following colonisation. So even if you see people that look like me as these white Caucasian Australians, they don't necessarily have any convict blood in their ancestry, at least not directly.
Convict blood. My mum's from Tasmania, where they sent all the bad criminals, and I'm pretty sure one of my great uncles hid in a cave for a bunch of months because he was like an outlaw.
I am not a criminal.
My family history, we trace it back to Second Fleet convicts.
Wow.
And my family takes a big pride in that. Like, they're like, yeah, we're the Second Fleet convicts that came over from England to Australia.
Something to mention here for you history buffs, I guess if you're a history buff, you probably already know, but the second convict ship to come out, the Second Fleet, not ship, group of ships, the Second Fleet actually had the highest death rate of any of the convict ships to come out here. And the problem, I think, was that they had effectively outsourced the transportation of convicts from Great Britain to Australia, where the people were paid for the number of people they took, not the number of people who arrived alive. And the other thing was that the food that they were using to feed the convicts, they could actually sell on after the fact. So the more convicts that died on the way, the more money they made. So there was some abominable percentage of deaths on the Second Fleet. And I think I've got a book here, Hellship, I think. Anyway, look into the Second Fleet and you are definitely going to feel sorry for some of the convicts that came to Australia.
I think we do have a little disregard, and I like that, for rules.
Roughness and, saying things how they are. Maybe the simplification of our language comes from a bit of that too.
Keep hearing it over here, so I just give up and steal people's wallets anyway. Like, if you're going to get the label, you've got to earn it.
So, something interesting there to talk about as well would be the fact that because we were a nation of convicts to begin with, it's really shaped our modern culture, and this is where we differ quite a bit from Great Britain and America. We have by far the most extensive vocabulary when it comes to slang. I think the diminutives that we have, words ending in O and A and the E sound, like, sunnies, servo, those sorts of words. We have something like 5,000 of those in Australian English, whereas from memory, when someone was doing a similar sort of study of Canada, there was only 1,000. So we as a nation have come out of all of these lower class convicts that came to the country to begin with and, had nothing. And it's just led to us being a lot sort of against the rules, against the upper class. Everyone wants to be seen as just, everyone else's equal. So we don't really pay too much attention to social class in Australia the same way as what you would see in, say, America or Great Britain. But yeah, a little bit of cultural fact there for you. All right, so what do we got here? Aussies are surrounded by animals that are trying to kill them, so they know how to handle dangerous animals. How to unpack this one? So I would say there are definitely a lot of dangerous animals in Australia, but they're probably not the ones you would actually think about being the deadly dangerous animals. You're much more likely in Australia to be killed by a kangaroo, by a horse, by a dog or cattle than you are by something like a snake. So snakes and spiders probably kill 2 to 3 people a year combined. In fact, I don't know about any spider deaths that have happened recently, but snakes is usually about 2 a year. Whereas I think it's something like, dozens of people die from horse riding accidents and from driving or riding a motorbike where kangaroos jump across the road and you just get cleaned up. So there are definitely loads of dangerous animals here. I don't know about knowing how to handle them. I think that we're probably more aware of spiders, so we know what to do with spiders in the house and like how to get them out of the house. But if it's something like a snake in your house, you're going to call a snake expert to deal with that. You're not going to try and do it yourself unless you know what you're doing already, right? If it's a python, I'd probably handle it. If it's a venomous snake, I'm getting on the phone and calling a snake catcher.
I was on my way up to a cottage and I first researched a little bit about what would be in the water. Snapping turtles.
Very wise.
If I had a spider, like a redback that can, really, really harm you, if it's in my kitchen in front of me, I don't care. It's just, there's always something there.
So you just learn how to kill them without getting shit scared, and then you can get scared after you've killed them.
I actually got bitten by a spider here, though. That's so ironic that I come to Canada, I come to Toronto, and it's the first time I got bitten by a spider, so...
Nature awareness. I think that's...
It's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
That's how we survive.
Yeah.
That and Vegemite.
Aussies eat Vegemite for breakfast, lunch and dinner. False. We eat it for breakfast and lunch. Yeah, so Vegemite is something that you kind of get force-fed from a young age in Australia. It just ends up being, on bread, on toast in the morning and given to kids. It can be put on biscuits with margarine or butter under them as well. I remember getting those biscuits with holes in them. You would put butter and Vegemite in there, well, your mum would. You'd take it to, in your lunchbox to school and you would be able to press the biscuits together and get these little worms of Vegemite coming out. So I would have that for breakfast. I would have Vegemite on toast or on bread. I'd have Vegemite sandwiches, all those Vegemite biscuits. I don't think I have ever had Vegemite for dinner though, right? And we would call it tea in Australia.
I hate Vegemite.
Oh yeah? I love it, but I wouldn't eat it often, no. I used to eat it off the spoon. That was...
I don't even like Vegemite. That's because I don't like it. I do like Promote with a craft single on it though. It's pretty good.
So there are other versions of what we would think of as Vegemite which come from Britain, I think. Things like Marmite and Promite. So I think it's the same sort of thing. Yeast extract with salt in it. I don't think I've ever actually tried any of those other ones. Just Vegemite though.
What does it taste like?
Shame. This is probably not going to be the commercial for Vegemite. But it can be.
It tastes salty. It tastes salty. Aussies love their Barbies. All right, a Barbie is a barbecue, right? Not the Barbie doll, okay? Although, there might be some of us who love our Barbie dolls. not me included. But Barbies, for sure. It's definitely a stereotype that rings true. I grew up and we were always having Barbies. It would be a social event. So that's the interesting thing. The Barbie can be the barbecue that you cook food on, but it can also be the event itself where you have people come over for a Barbie or a barbecue. I don't know if you guys can hear the rain. You wouldn't be having a Barbie today. But yeah, it would be something that would happen, probably a dozen times a year, maybe once a month. At my parents' house now, half the time we go over there when it's not COVID and we have a dinner, Dad'll just cook the food up on the Barbie outside because, it's just quick and easy.
Oh, yeah. It's a good way to get everyone together.
Perfect thing to do on the weekend.
I think we should do like a public service announcement though for barbecues. It's not shrimp. Shrimp on the barbie.
They're prawns.
It's prawns.
If I have to listen to someone say that again.
So the reference they're making there is to, I think in the 1980s, Paul Hogan made an ad for Australia that was shown to Americans where he was advertising Australia as a great place to come and holiday. And because Americans don't know what prawns are, which are, the large crayfish that swim in the water that we eat, they call them shrimps. So the weird thing about this ad was that you had Paul Hogan saying, come to Australia, chuck another shrimp on the Barbie. And, it was so that Americans half got it and didn't look too confused, although he was holding a freaking prawn. Like, how confused can you get?
I'm going to start using the back of my hand. People get they worry that they offend you when they mix up your accent with New Zealand, and they're like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm fine,
That's an interesting one. So I don't know about New Zealanders, but I feel like for us, it's kind of like the America-Canada rivalry. If you confuse an American accent with a Canadian one and you say to them, oh, are you from Canada? Americans will quite often not be offended. They won't be fazed, right? They'll be like, no, I'm from America. If you say that to a Canadian, at least in my experience, they tend to not react the same way. It tends to be more of screw you, I'm Canadian, I'm not American, I'm not one of them. And I think it can be the same sort of thing with Australia and New Zealand. There tends to be a sort of big brother, little brother relationship between our two countries because New Zealand's the smaller country and, they probably get confused for being Australian. They're very proud of who they are, and they should be. New Zealand's an amazing place, but I would imagine that if you said to a New Zealander, are you Australian, they're going to get much more offended than if you said to an Australian, are you a New Zealander?
I couldn't tell the difference between you and Americans when I first moved here.
Boom.
People will ask if you've got kangaroos in the backyard.
Koalas are disgusting creatures.
They smell so bad.
They're awful. They're not cute at all. If you want to hold a koala, you don't.
Yeah.
They've got sharp claws.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those stereotypes that we get too, especially from Americans. They have this idea that there are just kangaroos and koalas and wombats, all the cute and cuddly animals in Australia just running around your backyard, when in reality, I live in suburbia here and I'd have to probably drive half an hour to go and find kangaroos anywhere. I'd have to go find farmland or forest land somewhere. Same with koalas and wombats. You got to go somewhere pretty distant from here to find those. And also, they tend to be pretty nasty animals. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever approached something like a wild kangaroo. Either they're going to bail, or if not, they're full of pointy bits, claws and large strong legs, and they will kick the shit out of you if you get too close, especially a big male kangaroo. Koalas have got claws because they're tree climbers, and wombats, they will screw you up. I remember being a kid at Wilson's Promontory, and I was walking along the boardwalk near the water, and there was a wombat there, and I said to my dad, is it okay if I chase the wombat? He laughed and was like, yeah, it's fine. So as a 3 or 4 year old kid, I chased the wombat, and the wombat didn't move and chased me off the boardwalk into the water. So my dad had to pull me out of the river.
I don't know if I can say this, but 90%, this is not a joke, have chlamydia.
That's true. Koalas have chlamydia. Koala chlamydia. They didn't get it from humans. What do you want the world to know about Aussies? If I was asked that, I don't know. I guess I would want them to know that we're very laid back, we're very relaxed and very informal. So don't be offended if we're informal with you. It's that our culture is very much a friendly culture where we see people we don't know and instantly try and treat them in a friendly, informal kind of way. It's not a way of sort of being offensive or nasty to people. British and American people can definitely take it the wrong way at times if you're too informal from the beginning. But yeah, just get used to the fact that Australians use a lot of slang, we're very informal, and we do at times swear like crazy, but it's not because we're trying to offend people, it's more that we're just expressing ourselves, right? So yeah, just get used to informality in Australia.
We can be like a bit of a loose bunch, but we're well-meaning people.
Know that we make really big problems really simplified, so it's not that we're stupid, it's just that we like to simplify everything.
It's like we cut people's names off, we abbreviate things, just because back home it's so hot, it takes too much energy to say anything.
That's a good point.
We just want to just pull it back, just show me where the beer is, let's have a chat.
Hello, audience.
Hi, Mum. Hi, Dad.
Send this back. We're stuck in Canada. Help us.
I'm just going to talk through blinking.
Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed the video.
Alright, I guess it's done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think and tell me if you have any stereotypes for Australia that you've heard of or that weren't covered in this video. See you in the comments below. Peace!